Thank you for having me here. And yeah, maybe I will solve the riddle at the beginning so I don't forget. Becoming better citizens is something we kind of always talk about when talking about people having morals and things like that. And morals and values always depends on the culture you live in. So becoming a better citizen basically is something, yeah, it depends where you live. But today I would like to talk about how serious games try to teach values and ethical decision taking, and things like that to, yeah, people playing the games. So I think you might have come across all kind of headlines where games, not only serious games, also commercial games, have found their way to schools. We have already been talking in this conference that it's not easy for schools really to take on games and to take the approach of game-based learning, but there are some examples where it was quite successfully done also when it comes to teaching ethics or to teaching kind of moral decision taking and so on. So one example would be, of course, this war of mine, which we have already also had mentioned during the conference, which is now kind of on the reading list in Poland, which sounds a bit strange to me, a game as a reading list, but at least there is a game on it. And something that's already a bit older, which is in Norway, where high school teachers use The Walking Dead, so these kind of zombie game to teach ethics and ethical decision taking. So there are already some examples where games are successfully used for teaching ethics, morality, values, which brings me maybe to a point, maybe we should agree what we mean with these terms. Agree is a bit hard because there's not one definition of all these things. So I brought some definitions and also gave you the authors of these definitions. When we talk about moral, we quite often refer to something that's kind of a universal truth or kind of a public rule. So you should not kill other people just for fun or whatever. You should not bully others, referring to our keynote today. So morality can be connected to laws and things like that, but basically it's an informal public system, and it applies to all people living in a certain area, in a country, a culture, society, whatever. Ethics is more the individual thing, so morality applies really to society. Ethics is something that I do, so I have my own ethics to reflect on things, has to do with morality, of course, but it's my choice how I behave in a certain situation. And values can be not only defined by society or a bigger community like morality, it can also be something that matters by basically for an organization, also for a society, but also for a person. So this is on various levels, and it's kind of the guidelines we follow. It's not always easy to deal with these terms because even if you read up literature or if you talk to people, they're quite often mixed up. So when talking about teaching and teaching morals, ethics, and so on, you quite often come across the term ethical thinking. So what is meant by that? It's kind of collection, a set of skills and practices. So they're really skills you can train, which means like systems thinking or taking another person's perspective to reason or to interpret or analyze situations. So that's more the skills you can really teach. But of course, it also has to do with other things like character development. It has to do with citizenship and with civic engagement, which also leads us back to the title of this contribution. When we have a look at digital games, basically, so in general and ethics, we can say, of course, that all games also express values because they are ethical systems. So you can't just say, yeah, a game can't be without any values. So even if it's not designed for teaching ethics or morals or whatever, so that's what also Sikari said. So games do not just express ethical choices as part of the gameplay, maybe, but that's because of game players, designers, reviewers, whoever is involved in playing, making a game. They also are a system and they have their own values. So games also express values. And something else Saga said, so the narrative and the gameplay can, of course, encourage us, game players, to reflect, to evaluate what is happening in the game on an ethical thinking level. And also when we consider different choices or action to take in a game, that has to do with ethics. So basically, that's also something that might happen in most of the games without being something really designed for ethical thinking. So let's narrow this down. When it comes to digital games really to teach ethics, why should we use games and not other things? So basically, all the people that are here know that games can do quite a lot. Just to remind you, of course, games have the potential here because you can simulate situations, you can take on identities, which is not as easily possible without games. So we heard before in the keynotes when it was about bullying. So you can take on the role of the bully, the victim, or the bystander. So that's not that easy in real life. So yeah, and something else that's really, really important. You can experience, you can play around with all kinds of decisions and with the consequences, but the consequences do not affect your real life. So you're more likely to take risks and to push boundaries than, of course, in real life. And last but not least, we know games, if they are good games, they're quite well in motivating learners. When it comes to finding out if you can use a game for teaching ethical thinking, for conveying values, whatever, there is this EPIC framework by Schreier, who divided this in educational goals and in strategies. So that's something which helps teachers basically to decide if a game is good for whatever educational goal you have, for example, for enhancing emotional intelligence or for develop your character or deal with certain issues. And of course, that's one part teachers usually agree on. So what are my teaching objectives? And then you have a look at the game. So which strategies does the game use? So is there a story or narrative that supports my educational goal, or is it a simulation or whatever? So that is, of course, something to just decide or help you to decide if a game, any kind of digital game, might help you when you want to teach ethics, values, whatever. Something else I want to bring into this discussion, which might not seem to be that obvious connected to ethical teaching, is the self-determination theory by Deci and Ryan. So I think maybe many of you have already heard about this self-determination theory, which puts your motivation on a line between completely intrinsic or extrinsic motivation and a lot of shadows in between. And something that's really critical about this theory is that you have three psychological, or everybody of us has three psychological needs. And only if these are fulfilled, we feel motivated, we feel able, or we feel basically also has to do with our well-being and our performance. So, because intrinsic motivation is something we or teachers always strive for, because that's the best way if you learn something because you're really motivated to do that, and you don't need somebody to tell you have to do. And that depends on the autonomy, which is something I feel I do it voluntarily. I really want to do it. So it's something I see sense in. It also has to do, of course, with competence. So do I think I can master it? Is it, can I be effective in my behavior and activity that I should do? And of course, as human beings are very social, it also has to do with relatedness. So it refers to feelings of belonging, feeling connected, caring for others, but also being cared for. So all these three parts are essential for growth, for integrity, and well-being. So without this, so actions cannot be really completely fulfilled or taken if one of these parts is not completely fulfilled. So that's what intrinsic motivation is for. So and the connection to ethical learning, which might not be that obvious, was quite well done by Bessa, who said it always has to do, when teaching about values or acquiring values, it has to do with the knowing why, the knowing what, and the knowing how of virtue and values. So let me briefly explain what she means by that. So knowing how, and connected to the self-determination theory, says activities satisfy our psychological needs. But just when you engage in an activity that where you think that's good, you need to do that, you are autonomous. And of course, the more autonomy you feel, the more activity, the more effective this activity and this feeling is. So that's something she compares, for example, and that's where I took this quote for. When children grow up, they just feel safe. So they want to feel safe, that they can grow. And when children learn, when they make others feel safe and secure, the better it is for them. So if you kind of not take away the toy from somebody else you're playing with, then you can go on playing in a better mood, because then the other person is not crying or whatever. So you feel, if you do something, certain activity, others feel safe, and which makes you also feel safe and better. And that's how we basically learn about values. So all the interactions we do, if they are marked by care, respect, so then we learn, okay, that's better for us and better, of course, for the others. So that's how we learn why values are important. Oh, sorry. Have to explain to you the knowing what and the knowing how. Didn't put that on the slides. So the knowing what is basically just how, so identify with the importance of doing something. So for example, just think of, you learn quite early, being honest is important in life. But sometimes you will come into a situation when you're completely honest to other people, they might get hurt in their feelings. So just, I can say that because I'm a woman. If I ask somebody, do I look good? And somebody is honest and says, you look terrible today, maybe it makes me sad or angry or whatever. So that's something we learn. Okay, basically, honesty is a value we should follow, but sometimes it's better not to be completely honest. So that also has to do with care and respect. So knowing what and knowing how, of course, is that people who are virtuous people, they act on the thoughts. So they do not only know what they should do to make other people feel good and what they need to feel good themselves, but they also do that. So they know, they reflect on why it is important, so they can decide, is it better to be honest, for example, or is it better to tell kind of a white lie? So all these things, of course, play together, this knowing why, knowing what, and knowing how, which leads us back basically to the skills we talked about ethical thinking in the beginning. Okay, so now let's come to some examples of games, which I will show you how they try to teach. So really, I focused on games that really were designed to teach ethical decision taking. My first example is quite an old one. It's Quandary, which was also for basically designed for school. And it wants, I just put what they wrote on their website here. It wants to engage students in ethical decision making and develop skills. So think back, that's what we said in the beginning for ethical thinking. It's important to have, on the one hand, the skills and also the hard skills and the soft skills. How does this game try to do that? So first of all, it puts us in a more abstract context. So we're not on planet Earth, we are on planet Braxos, and there is a situation which needs to be tackled carefully. So you are the leader, the captain of a small community which settled down on this planet, and you have to take decisions, quite hard decisions. For example, the first level, there are animals killing the sheep, which you need for surviving there. And then you have your community, and everybody gives you kind of different input. The ones want to kill these strange alien animals. The others say, no, we shouldn't do anything. Some don't have an opinion and whatever. So you have to decide, you have to analyze, first of all, what is it? Is it a fact? Is it a solution or opinion? So you have to sort what the people are saying, which is basically a skill you can train, but which is needed for ethical thinking. And after kind of sorting things and doing some things in between, you have kind of your council you can go to, and you send all the things, the solutions you think that might be the best ones for your colony. You send, and the council gives you feedback, and then you also have to deal with the consequences of your solution you chose. So this game, although it is from the mechanic quite simple because you just sort things out, really helps you to get more skills in analyzing and sorting out things, and to differ between fact, solution, and opinion. A completely different approach, also for younger children, is taken by Fairside Stories, which is quite a new one. It's story-based, and it's for kids 9 to 12, and taking real-life situation. Also wants to learn about values. And this is a situation, for example, your aunt does not have enough money. What about the gift exchange tradition? Should you cancel it or exchange gifts in secret? So this is the situation, what happens if you choose exchange gifts in secret. So the aunt noticed, and of course now she is sad, which means basically the aim of the game is to keep the drama in your family low, which adds, of course, to the drama. And also this game does not tell you, okay, that's the correct solution, or that's the better solution than the other one, but you see which consequences there might be. And what the game also does is, when you play, there are different levels, different situations. You learn about yourself. So which kind of decisions do you take? Are you more the kind of friend who tries to do everything? Or are you more the kind of roguelike person and try to trick people, whatever? But the game also does not say which of these things are the best one. So it really tries to just to tell you more about yourself, and you can also find more information about these things. And the last one I would like to briefly introduce to you is more for, of course, adults. So it's about cybersecurity ethics, also quite a new game, and it's about finding out what you should do if you work in a company and you have to take quite a lot of decisions because you're the team leader. And you can see it's quite a complex game, and it can be quite stressful after some time because you have to react to the messages of all your coworkers. You have to take decisions. So are you more kind of strict to somebody who does not want to change their password to a really safe password? How do you talk to this person? Who do you assign which tasks and whatever? And of course, how do you deal with customers? So a lot of levels are included here. And something that's also in between, that's kind of the company always asks you to reflect on your decisions, or what you put what you think is more important. So you can say some examples here. So why did you do that, what you did in the game? So, and then you have to think, okay, that's important, that's not important, or that does not influence or did not influence my choices. And of course, after some time, this also helps you to reflect on things you did in the game. And of course, it also shows you if you kind of are, or if your coworkers still like you, if you're successful, whatever. So all these kind of decision taking has an influence on the gameplay. Okay, so I think I'm really running out of time, which means I will stop here. So these are the references. So you can see there are already some games really dealing with this really ethical thinking strategies. And I think they're really interesting to have a look at how they do that. And of course, it's not only about the game, it's also something that you need to discuss afterwards. So thank you for your interest, and I'm looking forward to answer any questions.